By the way, ever since the recent cuts to U.S. foreign assistance, we've all been wondering what would happen when another disaster strikes. Well, we kind of have an answer now. There's been a disaster in Southeast Asia, and it's even worse than people would have expected, according to groups on the ground. Let me back up and explain. Last week, Myanmar was the epicenter of a massive 7.7 magnitude earthquake, killed more than 3,000 people there. Now, in the past, the U.S. Agency for International Development, among its many roles, this is also known as USAID, it's provided grants to groups working on the ground there to help disaster recovery. But then President Trump took office, and that agency, which had 10,000 employees, has been whittled down to, after many rounds of layoffs, about 15 people. 15 people from 10,000. So the agency's future is in limbo, and all the support that it would provide, that is also in limbo. So what's going to happen now that there's been a massive disaster that they might have responded to in the past? What's the real-world impact? We are joined now by CBS News medical contributor Dr. Celine Gounder, who is also editor-at-large for public health at KFF. Dr. Gounder, thank you very much for being here. You know, the USAID was created for scenarios like this, in part on the idea that seeing Americans helping in a different part of the world would soften attitudes locally to America and brighten people's understanding of what our country is and its role. What now? What's happening?
Well, the situation on the ground is pretty dire. So not only are they still reeling from this earthquake, this is also a part of the world that is affected by natural disasters repeatedly. They're also dealing with a brutal civil conflict. Millions are without homes, water, sanitation, food, even the most basic of medical care. And so, yes, there are other aid groups there helping. We've only sent 3, by the way, 3 people out of that 15.
3 people, wow.
3 people. And you can imagine with resources spread really thin, it's a very difficult situation indeed.
Dr. Gounder, you're an infectious disease specialist. You've been sent internationally to respond to health crises. What does it look like on the ground when USAID used to support efforts in other countries?
Well, to give you an example, Turkey. After the big earthquake in Turkey, we sent over 200 people, what's called a disaster assistance response team. So it's people, experts, sniffer dogs to find people under crumbled buildings, other resources, for example, rescue equipment. And the contracts to send over rescue equipment were canceled by DOJ. So that equipment is not available. And as I said, it's only 3 people who are there helping. Usually the U.S. is there as a stabilizing force. We're providing not just the money, but the credibility, the organizational skills, and we're just not providing that leadership right now.
So who is? And I remind people that the original JFK goal of USAID, it wasn't all charity. It was we're getting something in return, and that return is the soft power, the goodwill, the people looking to America as a leader. In the absence of America playing that role, who is?
Well, there's some interesting history here, right? So after World War I, we realized we made some mistakes. That's what leads to the Marshall Plan after World War II, where we understand economic development is important after a war. We understand that socializing, stabilizing forces are important. USAID is also part of that tradition. And the fact is, soft diplomacy is much cheaper than sending in troops once things deteriorate. And unfortunately, what we're seeing now is when somebody steps in, it might be the Chinese, it might be the Russians, which we are seeing. And they're not necessarily doing that out of charity. They are trying to have regional influence as well. And remember, there is a brutal military junta there. And if they are working with the junta, they may in fact be helping to empower them further with that aid.
Yeah, China and Russia already aiding Myanmar. The president has repeatedly said that USAID was rife with fraud. You've worked with USAID. Have you seen any sign that that could be possible?
Look, any company, any business, any government agency, people are human, and you're going to have some bad apples. That's going to be everywhere. But that said, this was an agency that was really delivering life-saving medical treatment, water and sanitation, food assistance all over the world. And unfortunately, the people in Myanmar are very much suffering from that lack of support right now.
Especially when you think of they're not sending the equipment, the dogs, the people that are helping find victims who might still be alive.
Yeah, you can't virtually go pull somebody out of a building.
Yeah,
you need somebody on the ground.
Costing lives,
definitely.
likely. Dr. Gounder, thank you so much.